Mike Ashely, Newcastle's owner, has finally submitted the club's accounts for the year ended 30th of June 2017. Starting at the top of the income statement, Newcastle had total revenue of £85.7 million, a record for a club in the Championship, but nearly a third less than the previous season in the Premier League. Having a lot of money is one thing, and Newcastle have earned exactly £900 million under Ashely's ownership, but putting it to good use is another, and fans will question a lot of the decisions made in how that money has been utilised. Clubs tend to break their income down into three categories: broadcast, commercial, and matchday. For Newcastle, the biggest contributor is broadcast income from the Premier League in the form of parachute payments. Newcastle earned £40.9 million in 2016-17 from parachute payments, which works out at 55% of the Premier League's basic award. Year by year, parachute payments fall from 55% in the first year outside of the Premier League, 45% in year 2, to 20% in year 3. Income from broadcasting in the Championship for non-parachute payment clubs is a basic of about £6.5 million per year, plus £100,000 for every home match shown live on Sky. A huge gap therefore exists between those clubs in the Championship earning parachute payments and those that do not. Commercial income was £14.8 million, down from £28 million the previous season. Knockers of Ashely will point out that he uses St James's Park as an advertising vehicle for his Sports Direct cheap and cheerful sports emporium, and he should be generating more commercial income than any other club in the division given the history, heritage and size of the club, but it already is fairly competitive with many in the Premier League, whose matches are broadcast around the world each week and who generate vastly bigger viewing figures than most of those teams in the Championship. Earnings from matchday sales were maintained due to an average attendance of 51,108, beaten by only 5 teams in the Premier League. Matchday income at St James's Park was twice that of any other club in the Championship. Wages are a club's biggest expense, and Newcastle spent a record amount of £112.2 million in 2016-17, up 50% from the previous season in the Premier League. But this headline sum includes some one-off costs. A sizable chunk of the wage bill was paid for promotion bonuses, and a further £22 million was paid for players who were not considered part of the first team and so had their contracts paid up or went on loan, with the club picking up some or all of the wage bill. Nevertheless, even if these figures are excluded, the wage bill would have been over £80 million compared to the average Championship figure of £29.8 million. Kowtowing to Mike Ashely as Newcastle United Limited's only director is CHARNLEY, who earned £150,000 for his services in the year and waived his right to a bonus. Rightly or wrongly, CHARNLEY is seen in as bad a light as Ashely on Tyneside, but his pay is far lower than that of other football executives, with the average in the Premier League being around £1 million per year. Profits are income less costs, and here the club has been disingenuous by promoting in the press release a £91 million loss figure. However, this is before considering gains on player sales of over £42 million and includes the non-recurring costs from promotion bonuses and the contract write-ups. If you strip out the one-off costs and income and exclude amortization, claiming it as a non-cash expense, we get to something called EBITDA, earnings before interest, tax, depreciation and amortization. This is the profit most focused on by analysts, as it is a sustainable cash equivalent of profit. This gives a figure of £19.8 million, still sizable, but far less than the sum being touted by the club to the media when the results were announced. Newcastle made substantial EBITDA profits in previous years, so were able to absorb this loss reasonably easily. Mike Ashely's reluctance to spend money in the transfer market is legendary. In the period since he bought the club, he spent £308 million on players and raked in sales income of £244 million. This gives a net spend of just £65 million over the 10-year period. Last season in the Championship, Newcastle bought players for £41 million in the form of Ritchie, Gale, Yedlin and Clark, but managed to rake in £70 million from selling Sissoko, Wijnaldum and Townsend. Mike Ashely lent the club a further £15 million during the year, taking his total interest-free loans to £144 million. In addition to the loans, Ashely has invested a further £134 million in shares in the club, taking his total investment to £278 million. Rumour is he's trying to sell it for £400 million. But this price looks optimistic for a business that realistically has a 1 in 4 chance of losing its main source of income at the start of every year. Newcastle did take a gamble in investing in players to engineer a return to the Premier League, but not as much as the club has claimed. Astute management from Benitez, combined with canny signings on players who have a good resale value during the season, helped them bounce back. What happens next with Mike Ashely at the helm is unknown. He is the football fog on the Tyne, and it won't lift until he leaves.